The year is 1993, Jurassic Park is breaking box office records, Michael Jordan is dominating the NBA, and Sylvester Stallone is starring in Demolition Man, a sci-fi action flick set in the future where criminals are frozen, Taco Bell or Pizza Hut, depending where you are in the world, is the only restaurant chain left, and the biggest mystery isn't time travel or AI, but how to use the free seashells instead of toilet paper. Seeing a golden opportunity, Mattel decided to bring the high-octane chaos of San Angeles to toy aisles everywhere. The result? A quirky, muscle-bound action figure line that became a cult classic among fans of both the movie and 90s nostalgia. But here's the kicker, not many people outside the US even know this toy line existed. Hi, I'm Paul the Toy Scavenger, and this is the Toy Scavenger's toy history of Demolition Man action figures by Mattel. Now let's thaw out from our cryo chambers, override the morality code and dive headfirst into this forgotten slice of 90s action figure madness. Before we get into the toys, let's take a quick look at the Demolition Man film itself. Released in 1993, Demolition Man is a sci-fi action film starring Sylvester Stallone as John Spartan, the LAPD's most destructive cop. So much so, they literally freeze him to stop him from causing more damage. Opposite him, Wesley Snipes as Simon Phoenix, a psychotic criminal with a wardrobe that looks like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air exploded. The film takes place in the year 2032, where crime has been eradicated, swearing gets you a fine, and toilet paper has been mysteriously replaced by the free seashells. Because apparently, even in the future, some things are just too advanced to explain. When Phoenix escapes from his cryo prison, the authorities, completely useless after years of peace, thaw out Spartan to stop him. Cue plenty of explosions, futuristic nonsense, and the revelation that in this world, Taco Bell has won the fast food wars and is now the only restaurant in existence. Unless, of course, you're in Europe, where Pizza Hut won it instead. Because in 1993, Taco Bell was about as well known in the UK as decent weather. So Warner Brothers just changed it. They redubbed the dialogue, swapped out the signs, and hoped nobody would notice. Yeah, because absolutely no one would notice when people clearly say Taco Bell and the lips are saying something else. Pizza Hut. Despite all its quirks, Demolition Man became a cult classic. And as with the law in the early 90s, every sci-fi action movie had to have a toy line, regardless of whether the children were the target audience or not. Which brings us to Mattel's Demolition Man figures, or as I like to call them, the new adventures of He-Man, but now with Sylvester Stallone's head. But here's the thing, they weren't supposed to turn out like this. In fact, we were meant to get something entirely different. Stick around because in a moment I'll show you exactly what I mean. So let's talk about the Demolition Man figures. Mattel didn't just make toys, they made bold toys. Bright colours? Check. Ridiculously oversized weapons? Oh absolutely. Sci-fi absurdity? In abundance. The lineup gave us figures, each one an exaggerated muscle-bound version of their movie counterpart, and unsurprisingly, Stallone and Snipes dominated the roster. But these figures weren't just a creative decision, they were a practical one. You see, this toy line was a product of its time and Mattel's resourcefulness. Rather than designing entirely new moulds, the company repurposed parts from their new Adventures of He-Man figures. That's right, Spartan and Phoenix weren't just heroes, they were reskinned space barbarians. This gave them exaggerated physiques and futuristic gear, making the toy line feel more like a lost wave of He-Man rather than a gritty dystopian action movie. And yet, somehow it worked. Mattel actually had plans to expand the line, introducing new figures, maybe even some playsets, but those ambitions were iced after the commercial flop of their last action hero toy line. The result, instead of going deeper into Demolition Man, Mattel cut their losses and moved on. But that wasn't quite the end of the story. What started as a clearance bin casualty has now become a cult classic among collectors. But here's the thing, they weren't supposed to turn out this way. Stay watching because in a minute we'll show you exactly what we almost got. But first, let's take a look at the lineup we did get. First up, the man himself, John Spartan. The Demolition Man, the guy who doesn't know how the free seashells work. And because one Spartan isn't enough, we got 4. Battle Baton Spartan. He comes with a stun baton, some kind of a morality box, which, let's be honest, Spartan would just ignore anyway, and a laser armour, because everything in 90s needed to have laser. Bazooka Attack Spartan, equipped with an MP92 bazooka, a cryo injector gun and a gas mask, because nothing says subtle police work like a bazooka. Combat Cannon Spartan, featuring a massive 21st century cannon and a 50 caliber sidearm, perfect for stopping Simon Phoenix, or you know, leaving an entire city block destroyed. Kick Fighting Spartan, this one comes fully loaded, assault shotgun, executioner axe, automatic machine gun, silenced pistol and a laser knife. Oh, and he can kick, because that's what really stops crime. Mattel really wanted to make sure you had lots of options in this toy line, so they created Simon Phoenix. Moving on to Simon Phoenix, cool, cruel and sporting more weapons than a one-man army, we got Blast Attack Phoenix. Comes with a side blaster, scrap armor and a techno bow, because apparently in the future archery is making a comeback. Flamethrowing Phoenix features a flamethrower and an ACMAC accessory, meaning he can set things on fire, and in that outfit he can look seriously cool while doing it. With the Simon Phoenix characters, they even got the different colour eyes right. That's a pretty cool little feature. While the bodies weren't great, the head sculpts were pretty good. I do feel like we could have stopped Simon Phoenix's reign of terror before it just started by not giving him all these weapons, but here we are. Next we got Battle Hook Friendly, because everyone needed him, the underground leader of the scraps. He's got a power hook, a scrap tire stun shield, a waist mace and a wall scaling knee pad, because nothing says fight the system like knee pads. And finally, out of the figures, the outliner of the group, the Cryo Claw Tech. This guy wasn't in any of the movies and he's here anyway. He's armed with a seize and freeze gear. He's the only guy in the line actually designed to keep Simon Phoenix under control. So naturally, Mattel only made one of him. Mattel wasn't just done yet, because what is a hero without some ridiculous vehicles? We've got the Fast Blast 442, a sleek red convertible that definitely doesn't look something like from a dystopian future. But hey, if Miami Vice ever had a crossover with Demolition Man, this would be it. This was a repurposed mould from the Last Action Hero line. Pretty good decision, because it's one of the best vehicles out there. The Bowler Jet, a high-tech aircraft with bowlers for capturing enemies mid-flight, because realism never was the goal. And apart from the figures, we also got a missile shooting toy gun, a foam firing role-play toy that let kids live out their John Spartan fantasies. Because every 90s toy line needed something that could be launched at a sibling's head. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Demolition Man toy line. Or is it? Because remember, these weren't the toys we were supposed to be getting. Coming up next, we take a look at what could have been and why it didn't happen. So here's the thing, Mattel rushed the Demolition Man toy line. Instead of crafting brand new figures, they grabbed the moulds from the New Adventures of He-Man and called it a day. Why? Because they'd just taken a financial beating on the Last Action Hero toys, which had flopped so hard the entire line was cancelled. And then that meant Demolition Man was also cancelled. But here's where it gets interesting. Before Mattel made the final decision to cut the corners, 2 unique figures were actually prototyped for an industry toy fair. These weren't just repaints or recycled parts, these were completely new sculpts. Introducing the Lost Spartan and Phoenix figures. And these had a gimmick. On the surface they looked like a standard action figure, but when placed in water, the entire top half of the figure would turn translucent, revealing their frozen insides, like they were in mid-cryo freeze. Honestly, that is a brilliant concept. It would have been one of the coolest action figures of the entire 90s if it actually made it into the stores. Seeing all those insides were perfect for the time when gross out toys were booming. Unfortunately, these figures never made it past the prototype stage. Maybe it was the cost, maybe it was the time constraints, maybe Mattel just decided repackaging He-Man figures was a lot easier. We're probably never gonna know, but here's the kicker, the unproduced John Spartan figure is probably the most accurate looking representation of the figure from the film. Which means the best Demolition Man toy is the one we never got. And that, my friends, is the real story of Demolition Man toy line. For years, Demolition Man toys were overlooked, sitting in bargain bins, gathering dust in forgotten toy shops. But nostalgia, it has a funny way of revealing itself even in the most niche of toy lines. Today these figures are hot collectibles, with prices shooting up from £10 to £20 to now £40 to £80 and even more. Maybe it's the oddball designs, maybe it's the connection to the film, or maybe it's the sheer novelty of the Cryo Claw tech, because everyone wants one. Whatever the reason, collectors can't get enough. The Demolition Man toy line may have been short-lived, but it's captured the spirit of its era. From oversized weapons to futuristic vehicles, it's a perfect snapshot of the 90s toy craze. Whether you're reliving your childhood or discovering these figures for the first time, one thing is certain. Demolition Man action figures are a cult classic that absolutely deserve a spot on your shelf. So grab your cryo claws, load up your combat cannons, and remember, if you don't know how to use the free seashells, you're not alone. And hey, if you enjoyed this dive into toy history, don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. Let me know, did you own any of these figures? Which one was your favourite? You can also follow me on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, TikTok, Facebook, all at Toy Scavenger. And if you want to own these great demolition figures along with a whole host of other great vintage toys, head over to thetoyscavenger.com. So in the words of the great John Spartan himself, be well and be I've been Paul the Toy Scavenger. I'll see you soon.